Loud and Quiet presents Midnight Chats.
Hey, good evening, Midnight Campers. How are we all doing? It's felt like spring has arrived here in London. I hope it's wherever you are as well. It was a tropical 12 degrees today, so things are looking up. Thank you for joining us this evening for another rambling late night conversation with a musician of our choosing. Before I get into that, let's just address the elephant in the room and the fact that there wasn't a podcast last week. We do apologize for this, but we have a good reason. Last week, we finally relaunched Loud and Quiet magazine. It's something we've been working on since the beginning of the year, and we just couldn't do both last week. Something had to give, and we had to get this issue done. So that's why there wasn't a podcast. But the good news is that the issue is done. It's out there. We're feeling very smug about the way it's turned out. Please do check it out, especially if you're unaware of that side of the things that we do. Releasing a music magazine. You can find a stockist on loudandquiet.com where you can also order a copy, or a very popular thing to do right now would be to subscribe. So to the podcast then. Tonight's guest is Graham Coxon, who of course you know as the guitarist from Blur, as well as a solo musician in his own right. But Graham recently scored his first TV show on Netflix. It wasn't actually a Netflix original, I found out. I actually found out halfway through this chat with him. Originally, The End of the Fucking World was shown on Channel 4, apparently, but you can now watch it in full on Netflix. 8 episodes. They're all 20 minutes long, so it's very watchable TV. And it is very dark and funny and beautifully scored by Graham, the first piece of film and TV work that he's done. And it sounds like it won't be the last either. So Graham and I speak about that, about the Beatles, which seems to be a recurring theme on the podcast, especially the subject of, is Paul McCartney good or a very embarrassing man? And we also talk about box sets, Ryan Gosling, and driving in America. Now, the only thing that I think I probably should do just before we get started is mention a little bit about The End of the Fucking World. As I say, it's all on Netflix, and there's 8 episodes in total, and they're all very short. But the story itself is something that we don't actually mention during this podcast. So if you've not watched it, you might be thinking, what the hell is this they're talking about? So just to give you a very brief outline, The End of the Fucking World is essentially a love story about 2 misanthropic teens who go on the run, essentially. Played brilliantly by 2 British young actors, Jessica Barden and Alex Lawther, who are just total fucking weirdos throughout the whole thing, but brilliantly done. And Graham's songs and music is a key part to the whole thing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's all you need to know. Please do check out the issue of the magazine that is out there now. So much great stuff in there, some really good writing from our whole team of writers. There's an interview with Nicky Wire, there's the David Byrne cover feature, there's Lucy Dacus, there's, what else is in there? There's that band that I've just named after 8 stars. There is a great rapper called Shirt. There is another great rapper called Key Dash. There's loads. Please do check it out. loudandquiet.com is where all that information will be. And also, we are just about to announce a new podcast that we will be doing, a live podcast series, which is coming very shortly. So please do check out Loud and Quiet for information on that. In the meantime, thank you very much to Graham Coxon for coming by our office in East London and having this very relaxed conversation with me. We'll be back in another 2 weeks, without fail, with episode 45 of Midnight Chats. Are you still Camden based?
I'm around that area, yes.
Yeah.
North London. Been there for a long time now, into the 20 odd years. Yeah, I like coming over this way though. It's like a totally different place, and changes and develops and always looks different. And Hackney Road is where Blur started rehearsing.
Oh, really?
When
Just
we
along
were
here?
Very, very early days, yeah.
Was that up at Premises?
Yeah.
Was it called Premises
It
back
was
then?
called the Premises,
Oh,
yeah.
right,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, we used to just sort of just write and rehearse in there. So
I know some bands up there now, and did you have like a room that was always yours, that you could keep all your stuff in and it was your like base, or did you have to just lug your stuff there each time you wanted to rehearse?
no, we didn't have that. We were just rehearsing in between going to university and stuff then. So we weren't anything. But luckily the boy called Jason who worked there, he had the house VW van, and he started to help us out. So he would start to he was sort of became our roadie, and he stayed with us for years and years and years and years.
Did he?
Yeah. So he left the Premises in the end and just started to be our full-time roadie.
I mean, this area must have changed a hell of a lot since then. So what year was that? Would have been like
90.
90.
Yeah, 89, 90. It's changed a lot.
Mm.
There's a lot more funnier graffiti rather than just scary graffiti.
Yeah, it feels a bit safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been in like Camden and North for 20 odd years.
In those days I was living in Lewisham.
Do you envisage a time of leaving London at any point?
I've tried living in the countryside and I went a bit crazy.
Whereabouts did you try?
In the middle of Kent.
Okay.
But you have to get in a car to do anything.
Yeah.
That's boring. I quite like walking around with some headphones on, and I like having a coffee place within reach, walking distance, not reach. And just convenience. I quite like that. I'm a bit of a creature of habit. I do similar stuff every day. So I like being able to go to a reasonably healthy place where you can get food and coffee and whatever and browse around.
I went to the Lake District on holiday last year, and what my wife and I had been taking for granted is how late places are open here. Because we went to the pub and they'd closed the kitchen at 8 o'clock and we just missed it.
That's really annoying.
And they were like, no, there's no food now because we put. And I was like, it's 8 o'clock. But
Did they even give you any cold food that was just lying about?
No. It was like 8:05. They were like, no, it's closed. And that's the kind of thing I really take for granted living in London.
New Londoners coming over here.
Yeah. I feel like I'm starting to get the itch to move. Well, I don't know where I'd move to, that's the thing. I think like you, I'd feel like if I moved into the countryside, I'd feel a bit alone and isolated.
Yeah, I love it. And I love looking out on fields and things like that. But then there's no distraction. I like being out and about, seeing things happen around me, looking at people and getting this distraction from your own head, but also a little bit of inspiration from what's going on around you. And, you get a bit bucolic all the time if you're in the country all the time. I mean, I've thought about where would I go if I had to leave England, and, where in America would I move to, LA or something. I like LA, but America's such a nut house at the moment. I don't know what... that's a tricky one too. But I've got lots of friends there, and I always enjoy it out there. I get a bbit sick of shorts and t-shirts after a while though.
And you do have to drive everywhere there as well.
Yeah, that's cool though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never driven in America.
It's mad. Well, you when I was out there last, I hired this car. It was some. They laughed at me because it was I think it was a soccer mom's car.
Okay, what type of car is it?
Kind of a minivan.
Okay, right.
Oh, God, you got a minivan.
Did it have like a sliding door?
Yeah, the sliding door.
Right. Yeah.
But it was a flipping engine, a huge engine, massive engine, and fitted everybody in and all the cases and stuff. So I quite enjoyed rolling around in that.
Okay, I'm actually going to California on holiday this year to drive
Do it.
the coast, the Pacific Coast Highway.
Oh, yeah, right. What
that's
car are you
gonna
going to get?
I'm gonna get a big one. That's as much as I
big
know,
one.
because I just feel like it's got to be a big one, isn't it?
Well, the first time I did it, I was in New York, and oh God.
Well, you drove in New York.
I drove from New York, from the Greenwich Hotel out to the Hamptons, and it was in one of these huge Fords, massive, and it was an XL, so it was even longer. A massive 4-wheel drive thingy. And on the way back, I had to zoom back to get back to the hotel, drop everybody off because they were going to see a play. And I had to get the van back before a specific time, which was back up towards the gardens. The Madison Square Gardens.
Oh, Madison Square Gardens, yeah.
And it was hellish, and I got stuck on this cross section thing. And they were like toddlers. The way New Yorkers drive is like toddlers. They don't care about anybody else, and they go into any gap. I was absolutely stuck. And then there was this sort of topless bus.
Right.
And, the tourists sit in the top. And he started to turn left. I couldn't move. Someone had wedged me in there. And the back of the bus swung out and scraped all the way down the side of this big truck thing I was driving. And the car started jumping up and down and nearly sort of tipping sideways. My wing mirror got smashed off, and everybody on the top of the bus was looking down. And I just made it. It was the most stressful day of my life, and I just made it to drop the car, but I had to show them that it was totally trashed. Then I had to get a cab back to the hotel within a certain amount of time at rush hour, and it was the most hellish day I've ever had.
So what did they say when you kind of turned up? You were so close. Well, what, you like a few blocks away of having returned it in one piece, and you turn it up just smashed to shit.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. It was really, really horrible. And
were they mad, or were they like,
this?
That happens?
I guess there's sort of. I mean, it must happen, and it wasn't my fault, and just it was crazy.
New York driving.
The New York
I wouldn't drive in New York.
Rush hour. I would never experience anything so stressful in my life.
You were brave for taking it on.
Yeah.
What were the Hamptons like?
That was really nice. It was after we'd played out there, so it was just after Halloween, and there was loads of fields full of pumpkins. It was crazy, and we just went there and stayed in this little house, this friend's house, and it was kind of empty. Just drove around, went to Montauk. I think that's where Lou Reed sort of lived.
Oh, right. He moved out there.
It's right out to the very end. There's two places. There's Montauk and somewhere else we went to. And it's kind of nice. It was sort of rainy and a bit cool by that point.
Well, I've got some questions to ask you specifically about the end of the fucking world.
All right.
But this morning I saw an announcement about this Beatles tribute band.
Oh, yeah. I'm discussing that with my old friend, Jamie, yeah.
Yeah, so what's...
I've forgotten that had been... Yeah, yeah, that's fun,
Have you
isn't
forgotten
it?
about the fact that you've got to learn these songs? Do you know these songs? So to explain to anyone, because this has literally been announced this morning, I think. It's for the Teenage Cancer Trust concerts that go on here in London at the Royal Albert Hall.
It's for Big Roger, isn't it?
Roger Daltrey, Roger Daltrey. And you're going to be in part of... Is it it's Matt Bellamy's project? Has he done this before? I got the feeling from what I've read he's done this before.
I've seen some gigs before where they've had various people guesting on, various famous people as well, guesting people singing, even one of the Beatles did it.
Yeah.
And... But my old friend Jamie's the guitar player in it, and it's just some of his friends that he moved to LA and a few years ago, and so he's one of my dear mates out there, and he just hangs out with these guys who are musicians, and I think and they just were jamming around with the Beatles stuff, I think, but I think they're more interested in the leather-clad Hamburg style stuff,
Right. Okay.
So I think it's got a bit of that tilt to it. And he said, well, we've got this show, you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I know half the songs anyway, and I'll be able to get me old my old Cuban heels on again. The old winkle pickers.
So it's going to be early Beatles stuff, is it?
I think it's mostly early, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Did you grow up with the Beatles?
Yeah, it's my Bible.
Yeah. So
The
you just
Beatles.
know, so if someone was to say to you, we're going to put on a show of Beatles covers, you're just like, I've got it. Do you just know it? You just know
No,
those
most
songs?
of it, yeah.
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 From playing
I
as kids.
did the Abbey Road album in a pub in Clerkenwell with Robin Hitchcock and Mark Bedford from Madness and other people, lots of people. I forget now, crikey. And that was good.
Yeah, that's a good one to do.
Yeah, because and learn all the lead parts to that, and it was fantastic. Loved it. But yeah, the beginning of Octopus's Garden is quite tricky. But yeah, but it's great fun. It's a brilliant record to play. All the Beatles stuff is great fun. That's how I learned the guitar. You know, the Beatles complete. Open that and strum along.
Yeah.
Chord boxes.
Yeah. Is that the one with the psychedelic picture on the front?
That's the other complete. We had that one. And then there was the one with the gold coins on, which was the one.
I know the one.
Which was the one I was after for a while, because I think that they were in the same key as the records.
Yeah, and the other one isn't at all.
The other one isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who at the show, which Beatle will you be?
I don't know. There'll
playing?
probably be more people on stage than there were Beatles. So I'll probably have to be a kind of I'll go with being a sort of a George, I guess.
Was George your Beatle?
No.
Did you have a Beatle?
They all melded into one beast, really, the Beatles for me, and I didn't really, you know, they were such an amazing mix of voices when they were all singing. But I liked Paul.
We've got Paul just down there.
Yeah, I see Paul.
We get some stick for that. I
Why?
seem to mention him every time I'm on the podcast. Paul McCartney. He seems to be the recurring theme of this podcast. Is I'm always.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with Paul?
Well, because I feel like people either really love Paul McCartney. If you're a Beatles fan, you obviously love Paul McCartney, but a lot of people think he's that embarrassing dad figure, and they can't get over that. It's not cool to like Paul for people of a certain age. I don't think.
Some people who are very knowledgeable think the opposite. If you talk to Ian Sylvanus, he always says it's very different. I you know, Paul was actually the more avant-garde member of the Beatles throughout there, you know, the mid-60s, and he was exploring all the kind of culture, I think. But, you know, Paul's stuff, you know, my little girl, she responds to Paul's voice. She loves the Yellow Submarine, and she loves all those songs that are on that, and they spread over the Beatles' whole career. So she responds to his voice, and I suppose I did. They're very, very melodic. And later on I got into John Lennon more. I got more interested in him as a man, as a person, and I always sort of liked George, but he was the sort of more of a private guy, less information about him really, I suppose. And so, and I always thought Ringo was great as drummer. No problem with Ringo. You know, saying whether Paul's cool or not is a waste of time. I think it's just, you know, they were all brilliant, and within that band, they all fitted together perfectly.
So, The End of the Fucking World.
Yeah.
Your first score.
They call it a score, yeah.
They call it a score these days.
Yeah.
Have you been offered them before and turned them down, or
No.
This is just the first one that kind of came up? And
Yeah.
how was it as a general experience?
But it was my mate Matt Biffer. He I got to know him. He grabbed me to write a tune for the End of the Riot Club.
Right.
Which was the film about the sort of
Bullington
Oxford.
boys, yeah.
The sort of about that, and I wrote a song for the end of that. And then this came up. He just thought I'd be really perfect for it. I think the director Jonathan Entwistle really liked my was a sort of a fan or whatever. They exist, and just thought that would be great. And so they asked me, and they sent me some scripts, you know, stuff like that. And I was just like, yeah, I'll do this. It seems like it'll be good fun.
So is that how it works? They send you scripts rather than footage, or?
Yeah, I got scripts first, and then eventually I got a few roughs of a couple of episodes, and then we had a meeting. And the thing is, the episodes will have a temp, and for those who don't know what that is, they put a song in behind the action as a sort of an indicator as to what they think would be appropriate.
Oh, so it's just kind of like just like a holding place.
Yeah.
They put a song in.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they could be songs that... Did you know the songs? Were they like well-known songs?
Yeah, mostly. At the end of the fucking world, though, it's got a lot of old 50s interesting songs on it. 50s, early 60s. But then it's got the my stuff. But a lot of my stuff, it wasn't exactly written to... It wasn't sort of like a soundtrack or scoring when it was written to... with the action in mind, almost. It wasn't written to... scored to the action. So it doesn't, no loud bits coincide with stressful action, or none of that sort of thing. So I was kind of thinking about what the temps were, and then being inspired by the characters and the situation, and then I tried to write songs that felt like they'd been there for anyway, that they had been picked, rather like the temps. So it was amazing practice for me, because I had to sort of genre hop, decade hop, and I hadn't been using DAWs and all the rest of it at home for that long. So it was really great practice, seeing how I can do that, seeing how I could do it on, go from sort of early 90s, a bit slackery, whatever that's called, slacker sort of stuff, like early Beck kind of thing, I suppose. Sorry, Beck, a slacker, but as a kind of a loose genre. And then arty late 70s, and then sort of cinematic, kind of very valvey Scott Walker stroke, Lee Hazelwood. Some people said a couple of the songs were a bit like Lee Hazelwood, but much inspired by Scott Walker, and then a little more sort of the sister album by Big Star, that kind of thing, stroke Ry Cooder-ish, but more Essexy.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of different things to explore, music to explore, and I was like doing it, going full time on it, 9 to 6.
Can you remember what the original brief was when they came to you and said, we've got this thing? Did they outline the story, the characters? How much kind of information did they give you to go on?
And well, they went on a little bit about the story. They didn't tell me what was going to happen. We went over what was happening in the episode, how people were feeling, and this is happening here, and we need a theme maybe for these detectives, and these two policemen, and then they'd have a song here. We want something gentle. She's crying in this bit. We need something kind of gentle, maybe underscoring on this bit, and so I just sort of come up with. And I'd write a list of what sort of was required, crying bit, and then it was quite interesting because, having a brief and having a kind of some sort of inspiration, I found that I could work quite well without having some sort of an absolute blank space to start on. It was quite good having a sort of a brief, sort of, so... I found that I could work quite quickly, and if they wanted this type of tune, I could send them sort of 3 or 4 of that kind of thing, or maybe 2 one day.
Right, on a slow day.
Yeah, but there was a couple of big Scott Walker type stuff, things, and some of the things didn't make it onto the soundtrack record or the series. So even in discussions, I would be going, oh, hang on a minute, and I have to go to the loo or whatever and just sing a little idea, and then after the meeting I'd go home and record it, and they'd have it at the end of the afternoon.
They must have loved working with you.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of amazed, but it was good because it got me fast on Logic and stuff, it got me really quick, and I got a workflow, because before, if you just mucking about, you don't actually do anything really, you don't figure out what your workflow is, and so I got faster and faster.
Yeah.
It would be like automatic, and then there'd be a song, and then I'd chuck it over to them and learn how to do that, bounce as audio file. All this, I'd never done any of that stuff before.
You've been like schooling yourself, like rapidly.
And in between watching a quick YouTube video about how to do this, and how to do that.
I will reach for YouTube on literally anything I don't know how to do now.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. I love those people that put up tutorials on how to change the bulb in your car. and things
Yeah,
like that.
I know, it's brilliant.
It's just
it?
like such a selfless thing to do. I'm now going to make a video about window wipers, cleaning your window wipers or whatever.
Yeah.
So when did you see the whole series?
Well, it's funny, 'cause I'd see some lockdown, and then we'd watch it, and then we'd go to edits, and then they'd be still discussing it, this and that and the other, and then I'd see the very last one, and it's like flipping heck. And just about the only piece of music that was done to action was that extended piece that was during the caravan, right at the end. End of episode 8. But it was always I was always listening out and looking at things, so I was always in a sort of an analytical frame of mind. So when we settled down to watch it in its full thingy, I was kind of like, wow, I was really amazed. I was really impressed. It was tons better than I actually thought it was going to be. I thought the first episode, I was really scared that no one would watch past the first episode because the kids are such an unattractive.
I know.
They're like, oh, they're horrible kids. But then by episode 2 and 3, I think they become they really grow on you, especially her.
Yeah,
she becomes funnier and funnier, and
he's got
so
that
you get
weird
to
way of
love
talking.
them. Yeah, I know, it's really dispassionate, sort of weird.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because Greg, who you just met, watched it before me, and he said, "Oh, it's brilliant." He was nothing but full of praise for it, and I ended up absolutely burning through them. But after about like the first couple, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through this because of that exact reason. Like the kids are just like so misanthropic and so so kind of like, oh, come cheer up, and, kind of like these nasty characters. But by the end of it, you're super rooting for them.
The thing that gets you through is the humour. If that wasn't there, you'd be like, oh, sod it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you talking like Downton Abbey? That. There's just tiny little throwaway bits like that have me really chuckling and really enjoying characters. She's a great writer. So yeah, it was and then there was things that I'd forgotten. There's this track called Bus Stop, and then I was like, hang on, there's singing on it, and I'd completely forgotten that I put some vocals on. You've done that. Yeah, because I was in such a rush. I must have done it last minute and gone, I put a quick vocal on here, and then I sent it off and forgot about it. And then so there were times when I was listening to it almost like it was done so quickly that I'd forgotten a lot of the songs almost, and then so it was like hearing him for the first time, and again, it's quite odd. Yeah.
When it finally went up on Netflix in one bulk, did you sit down and watch it? And do the marathon?
I watched it on all 4, I think, first.
Did you?
It was a Channel 4 thing first.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
It was on Channel 4. Then it went Netflix.
I went all Netflix on it.
Yeah, so I watched them then early on.
And the characters, as we say, like those kids are so kind of nihilistic and misanthropic. Was there anything in them that, even though you're no longer 17 yourself, could you relate to them in any way? How were you as a 17-year-old?
I was nothing like that.
You weren't a psychopath?
I was utterly the other way. I was naive and overly romantic. I romanticised everything, and I was a sort of an aesthete to the flipping extreme. I was an art student. I played music. That was my whole thing, music, listening to records. I was getting bust up a little bit from relationships being tricky and things, and losing my innocence in a way when I was through my 17, 18 and things like that, and thinking, flipping out, falling in love and having relationships that were, this is not what it's meant to be like, this is not what it's like in the Beatles, things like that.
Yeah.
And sort of grow, not quite growing up and always finding it all a bit difficult, and then going off to London when I was 19 to go to art school. So I used to read a lot of stuff, and I used to read a lot of existential stuff. I used to love a bit of Sartre, and I used to want to have a lot of knowledge of why we're here, who are we, what should we do, what's the point, sort of thing. But I was never, I don't think I was ever a psychopath or sociopath or any of these things. I think I was just mega romantic. Not anymore though.
No, jaded now.
Yeah.
Hardened and jaded, and
Yeah. Awful. It's like barren.
Do you still read Sartre?
I what?
Do you still read Sartre?
No. Totally misheard you then.
What do you think I said then?
I thought you said you still retouch her. And I was like, who are you talking about?
That's my slurring accent, I think.
Read Sartre. I love a bit of Sartre. The Age of Reason and all that, Nausea. I really liked it. And then I got into Salinger a lot, and I remember when I was reading Sylvia Plath and Salinger at the same time, and that was flipping. If you're feeling a little bit like moody, that's a good thing.
That's
to do.
a good look.
Yeah, I actually found the Sylvia Plath a lot more comic than I thought I was going to.
What were you reading? Belgium.
Yeah, the old classic.
Yeah.
The first half is quite funny. It's got a lot of wicked humour in it. And then before you know it, and you don't quite know when it happens, it's like, what? This has completely changed. And it's so clever. Because you don't know quite when it's happened, but you've suddenly plummeted somewhere else. Yeah, and I always loved Salinger. I had a romantic thing with, about his characters and the Glass family and all the rest of it. And, I've always loved books, and I've always devoured authors, really. Like Jim Thompson, the crime writer, and I was really into his stuff. He wrote Killer Inside Me and The Getaway, amongst other things. And then really into Paul Auster, really into Leviathan and Moon Palace and the New York trilogy and the Oracle Night and these incredible, genius books. And then Evelyn Waugh. There's all such a, I get obsessed with novelists, and so I do love reading. But now I'm on YouTube too much, figuring out how do you do this? How do you do a fade on MIDI? That's boring.
Distracting you.
Yeah, it's really boring.
Do you miss being a teenager at any point?
Not really. It was all right. It was sort of fraught with feelings of what if, I've always had inadequacy. My main thing is you're a Burke. That's my main internal dialogue.
I think that's quite natural.
Yeah, it's probably quite natural. Yeah, it was all right. I wouldn't mind doing some of my 20s again. My 30s was all right. A bit lonely. I was on my own quite a lot during my 30s, and I was sort of starting out and doing my solo sort of albums a little bit then. So I was at home a lot, strumming away at guitar, watching the news on the sofa, and looking after my little one, who is today 18.
Wow. Today? What today?
Yeah, today.
It's her birthday today.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Pepper. Yeah. It's
Congratulations.
Crazy. It's pretty nuts. So yeah, some of my 20s, I just think I was in a bit of a mard because I wanted things to be a certain way and they weren't. I get a bit, the 90s. It was a bit.
You had quite a busy time in the 90s.
It was busy, and it all just seemed a little bit like you're having to do an awful lot of pointless stuff. I had a lot of chips on my shoulder about the sort of how I was experiencing it. But really, I should have just had a good time, I should have just... No one said, Graham, stop drinking.
Were you not...
And have a good time. Just cheer up. It's great. Think about it.
Were you not allowing yourself to... Because obviously in the 90s there were a lot of people who were really, I imagine, filling you with praise and saying how great you were. Did you find that uncomfortable, that being told that you were great? Have you always struggled to hear that?
Yeah, you do, but it's funny when you're in a band, you're the others that get told they're great more.
Well, everyone in the band thinks that.
Yeah, probably.
Generally, yeah.
Probably they do. I don't know. You get told you're great, whatever. But really, your day-to-day experience of yourself and your band and whatever is that sort of. It's kind of like it's sort of. You've got to live with yourself, that's basically, you've got to drag yourself around and you're in your own mind, and it's not always a great place, especially if you're exhausted. And when we first went to America, 2 months tour or something like that, in a bus where your parents aren't there, no one's going to tell you what to do, you can do what you like, flipping heck, and you don't realise that you're testing the limits of your sanity until you're breaking down and crying for no reason. You're like, what's going on? All I've been doing is drinking every night and for 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, and suddenly you're having a flipping breakdown and you don't really know why. So
did the rest of the guys know how to deal with that kind of thing?
Some people just didn't have to escape as much as I did.
Right.
But we were partying pretty heftily. Yeah. It's a funny one. No one tells you, look, man, slow down, honestly. Oof.
That's the 90s, the age of the excess. The 90s
It was.
kind of excess,
it
wasn't
kind of turned out that was pretty the case. I was talking to a cab driver on the way, and he recognised me. He was talking about, and the 90s were great, weren't they? And I think, well, in a way, it was the sort of record industry's last hurrah. It was when they still had money, and you could still have big launch parties for albums, and your albums didn't get leaked as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
people would buy them.
Yeah, people would buy them. There was money knocking about. You could have daft, big, silly parties, and all the labels had these big conferences that were weekends where everyone just let their hair down a bit too much, probably. So, in that way, it was kind of great. No one knew what was around the corner, although they were warned. Actually, quite often, they were warned quite a lot that they had to really keep on the case as regards the internet. But I suppose no one had thought it would really collapse in the way it did. So really the 90s really was that last era of record, of being sort of a thing like the 70s, 80s and 90s. They were these decades of excess, I suppose.
I wonder if bands now, like young bands, kind of go for it as much as you guys did then.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just thought that's what you did.
Yeah.
Growing up, I wanted to be in a group like The Who, And they were sort of role models. It's pretty dangerous role models to have. But I'd watched The Kids Are All Right, that movie.
Yeah.
There was tons of swearing. There was tons of smashing guitars up. Obviously, tons of drinking, and mayhem. And I just thought that's what being in a band was, But nowadays, I think people come at it from a bit more of a business side,
Yeah.
You go to school to learn it now. You don't sit in your bedroom and learn tons of blues licks now anymore, You come at it more from a business angle, but I'm sure there are bands that are flipping mental and still doing all the crazy stuff. Yeah, but in the very early 90s, we'd go to the Camden Falcon, and there'd be Shane McGowan, and there'd be early bands like the Venus Beads, and there'd be, gosh, who were that? Group, Terry Bick's group after the House of Love, and there was a lot of really strange, mad, insane and kind of dark characters around, and you'd be playing pool with them, and suddenly you were a space pilot or something like them, and you'd be part of some weird group of people, and who were all lovely, and I still see around. They're still knocking about, but it was a very dark and weird scene, and it was very funny, but it seems to have totally disappeared.
Yeah.
And it's turned very, very shiny and very professional and a bit whingy.
Right now we're obviously going through a huge 90s kind of rose-tinted view of it, and everything's 90s and fashion's 90s, and everything's kind of like, wasn't the 90s great and celebratory? Yeah.
Oh,
I was going to ask you,
like, all those clothes.
I was going to ask you how it feels having like been in the thick of it and now having to experience all these people saying how great it was, or kind of have an opinion on it. But has this passed you by, the fact?
Well, the 90s, we were just trying to be the 60s. It was trying to be our own 60s, and there were some terrible people with, like, the Blow Up Club. I'd go there every week. You'd have a pint of lager. I'd drop my Parker off at the old thing at Cloakroom, whatever, and someone would drop something zoomy into my drink, and off we go. And I'd look around there going, he's got a Fred Perry on and a tie on a Fred Perry, and then a zip-up Adidas tie. And I was like, oh my God, this is not right. This is all totally wrong. But I suppose 90s fashion was ripped jeans and plaid shirts as well, and it was all sorts of things, wasn't it? But the Britpop thing, it was pretty awful. It was kind of quite oiky, I think. Is that a terrible thing to say?
No, I think that's fair.
I mean, it was good. It looks good. It doesn't look good on everyone, you know. It was kind of modish. I mean, I suppose Blur was sort of quite modish and messed around with DMs and loafers and Harringtons and things like that. But I got kind of bored of it quite quick.
So in terms of the film work, the scores,
Yeah.
is that something you've been wanting to do for a while? Or is it just something that's kind of, this is a little project and maybe will be the only thing that you do for film, or would you want to do more?
Yeah, I quite like to do more. I'm not very good at doing loads of things at the same time, but definitely I'd like to do more. I like the idea of, you know, I can just work at 6 a.m. if I want in a dressing gown, just, you know, because it's at my house, you know. I've just got this sort of room where I set up my stuff and it sounds all right. I haven't really treated it or anything, but there's a lot of old tweed jackets and overcoats everywhere, so I suppose that sort of acoustically treats the space.
You've soundproofed your room with tweed.
Yeah, basically. 18 years living in Camden sort of worth of tweed. So I quite like it. I like that idea that I go up there and it's my own space and it's where I put things, they stay there, and I can sort of absorb whatever I'm doing. I can get into it and work quite well. So yeah, I'd like to do more. I'm pretty unsure as to whether there's going to be any more End of the Effing World. Hasn't been discussed, and I know there's two sort of. Some people think it'd be a great idea, others think it'll be a terrible idea. But
the thing is that I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's not seen it, but the ending is so it's kind of perfect as it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I understand that these things kind of are sometimes too tempting to leave alone.
Yeah. But I think it's an incredible story that you know, Jonathan found this comic in a bin, you know, and he's picked it out of a bin, and the end of the fucking world, that looks interesting, and really liked it and thought this would make a great series.
I didn't realise he'd found it in a bin.
Yeah, and then he contacted Charles, who had self-published this comic, you know, in the States, and so it's kind of a lovely sort of fairy tale.
Yeah, it is. It really
and
is.
he's capable of writing tons of great stories. You know?
Yeah.
It might not even be about them two. He could write stories about other people.
About other things.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So who knows?
Do you go in for box sets generally and binge watching kind of a season of something?
I do. I love a bit of a binge.
What are your favourites?
My favourite all time would probably be Breaking Bad.
I've not seen Breaking Bad yet.
Oof, my God.
I've not. I'm actually not very good at box sets.
But
I have seen all of End of the Fucking World.
Yeah.
I think it helps that there's 8, and they're all like 20 odd minutes
8
long.
minis, yeah.
And I can cope with that. But I'm currently halfway through season 2 of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah, I've seen those.
And I'm into it, but I feel like if I basically take my foot off the gas, and if I go a day or a night, if I go a night without watching one, I kind of think I can live without this. You know?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've not seen Breaking Bad, but that's your one. Is that
and Better Call Saul? I love that, which is related.
Okay, but you need to watch
And I
Breaking
really
Bad
loved
first.
Mad Men. I really loved Boardwalk Empire. You know, I've watched a lot of them. I've always kind of watched them. The old House of Cards. I used to watch that years ago, like 10 years ago. Got into watching the old House of Cards and
the original one, not the spacey one.
I haven't watched the spacey one.
Right,
That's another one. I'm sort of saving. But the Stranger Things, yeah, I really love the Big Little Liars. Is that Big Little Lies? Little Big Lies?
Is that the one about the girls, the group of girls? No. It's one my wife watches that's called something about lies.
It's Reese Witherspoon and.
Oh no, that's not it. I don't know that one.
Yeah, I mean that was just a one season thing. I really thought that was fantastic. Beautiful soundtrack as well.
I'm guessing you've done The Wire.
No.
Have you not done The Wire?
No, there's a few I haven't done that people want to hit me.
Even I've done that one, and I don't really do them.
Wire,
the problem is with that one is I feel like, and everyone says that's the best one, like, or Breaking Bad actually, and I feel like I've peaked because that was one of the first ones I did, and now ones I've seen after that aren't as good.
Yeah.
It's 5 seasons.
That's
of
not
The
bad.
Wire, so it's pretty manageable.
Boardwalk Empire is pretty good.
That's the Scorsese one.
Yeah, Steve Buscemi and
Okay.
the what is it? Prohibition.
What do you? What about Game of Thrones?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you into that as well?
Yeah, love a bit of Game of Thrones.
I had to give that one up.
When did you give it up? Because was it when it was just all getting a little bit too like sort of like
gratuitous,
gratuitous shagging and killing basically all the time?
No, you know what? I gave it up. I'm kind of almost embarrassed to say after 5. I watched 5 seasons, and then I just thought this isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
The Dragon Lady's not even got over the river.
Yeah.
At this point, it's taken 5 seasons. She's still thinking about it, and I got my friend who's read them all to ruin it for me. I was like, tell me everything that happened so I don't have to watch this anymore, and she told me everything. So then I felt at peace with it a bit. But I've heard it's got good again now, and it's actually it's rewarding the people that did stick with it.
Well, I thought after a couple of seasons, it was like I was feeling a bit sick. It was like too much. Like, oh my God. And then it started to get good with that Red Wedding thing, and then I really love Homeland as well. And the last 2 series of that, or seasons, I hate calling them seasons, but the last 2 of those, it seems to be like I think that it's the same as the Game of Thrones. It's just blokes walking around with sort of leather chest plate things on. Yeah. Having conversations for most of it, on the side of a mountain. It's like, well, whatever. And it's, I want to see a bit more of the gratuity.
So you've become kind
gratuity.
Yeah, you've become like kind of institutionalized to the violence. Now there's not enough violence.
Yeah, there's not enough violence and there's not enough sex. So I need loads of that in my just general life. So that's, at night time, that's generally what I'm up to. No, not really. No, not really. And Homeland is as well. It's like people in corridors having conversations mostly because the story's ridiculous. They have to have these long sections where there's just... And then there's a bit of excitement. And then the last episode is ridiculously intense. But the series has been totally boring.
Has it finished?
No, I'm really looking forward to another one soon.
It's still going on.
Well, I think there's one coming up soon. There must be.
They dragged them out. Prison Break was one I watched, which got so unbelievably ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, like the first season's good, and the second one's good, but you can tell that they wrote it as 2, And then there's this point when it should have ended.
Yeah.
And they obviously got offered too much money to not end it. And then it just becomes absolutely the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. But you're like, you've spent all these hours on it. You've got to see it through to the end.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely mental.
Really?
People like dead characters coming back to life.
I really like Dallas.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I mean, I'd recommend it if you're into them.
Are they dressed in magical clothes?
No, it's just...
So coming back to life when right. In Game of Thrones you can there's a bit of witchcraft in that, so you can kind of coming back from the dead.
No, this is just contemporary, modern day.
Oh, right.
Just someone you go, it was faked. That their death was somehow faked.
Or I dreamt it.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
that was it. Bobby Ewing dreamt a whole series of Dallas or something.
He did, didn't he? It was all just a dream.
It was a dream.
I always thought that would have been a good ending to Lost.
Yeah.
If it was just someone was watching it on a plane.
I never watched that.
No, I watched the first episode and was out.
Yeah. I know there's the girl in that silly film, This Is 40. Paul Rudd film. I love all those silly films. There's a girl who's obsessed with Lost in that film.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I've not seen that film. I do quite like those silly films. Though.
I do, yeah.
Is that your genre, your go-to genre?
I do quite like that stuff. I like Wanderlust and, silly, I mean, a bit puerile. And I Love You Man and This Is 40.
The 40-year-old virgin.
Yeah, that
stuff. Yeah. The Judd Apatow kind of vehicles. Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that. I kind of quite like Seth Thingamajig Rogan.
Seth Rogen.
I quite like his laugh.
Yeah, he's like a bear.
Yeah, so it's worth it for his laugh every few minutes.
So what would you like to soundtrack next? Is there anything you'd like any type of thing? Would you like to soundtrack one of those films? Judd Apatow if he got on the phone.
I mean, what sort of soundtrack do they have? They just have silly. It's kind of like they might have a little bit of kind of ska punk or skate punk, or then a bit of like
it's kind of a hangover from the American Pie soundtracks, isn't it? It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I can write a novelty song. I wrote a couple of novelty songs that were even too stupid for the end of the fucking world. I said, what about these? You know, that song I wrote. You know, the really silly novelty, sort of old fashioned. I wanted it to sound like it was made in the 40s. What about that? No answer. Like, okay, they're totally not even entertaining the idea.
They just never responded.
But I might do a different version of it and try and just, you know, punt it around a bit.
Put
see
it
if
out
anyone
there.
wants it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's got a whole kind of vocal sound solo. It's not words. It's just vocal noises and lip sounds. But it's a solo.
I want to hear it. I wonder why
it's like one of those. It's like one of those really ridiculous old novelty records. You know, it's kind of like Spike Jones and the City Slickers or the Goons or something mixed together.
I want to hear this. I feel this needs to be out there.
I'll do a better version of it. Maybe that was it.
Did you watch La La Land?
No.
Oh, you know what? I loved that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Well, I'm getting mixed thingies about it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose my genre of choice is probably romance and rom-com more and more these days.
Yeah.
And I did like La La Land. I'll also watch anything with what's his face in Ryan Gosling.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
He's got a lot to answer for, hasn't he?
He really has.
It's his fault that estate agents now look how they do. Their tight suits and their Ivy League haircuts. Like, oh my God, another sort of smaller Gosling.
Yeah, the Goslingisation of the world is upon us.
I mean, I love old Goslings, but crikey, everyone wants to look like. For a while, wanted to look like the Gozza, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this great film called Mr. Roosevelt. Have you seen that?
No.
A really daft film. That had some really good music in it too. Really
Who's in
great.
that?
I've no idea.
Is it a recent?
It's
film?
one of them feel-good indies.
Okay.
We often settle down to a feel-good indie. No, look it up. It might have a picture of a cat on the front. Mr. Roosevelt is actually a cat. But it's about a girl who goes from LA back to her hometown because the cat had passed away. She goes back to where she sort of just walked out on her boyfriend. She goes back into that situation and he's found himself a new girlfriend. And it's just how they are in this situation. And they go back to Austin.
Right.
Basically. And it's just this silly, daft film, but, you know, good, funny. It's just one of those things that you just think, you see the cover and you go, oh, you know, I'll give that a go. It doesn't look like, you know, but then you're like, wow, this is really nice and really funny and daft and it's just a nice film, you know. I'm
going to check it out and check out La La Land.
I will,
It's estate agents dancing around, essentially.
Midnight Chats is a loud and quiet podcast. Music courtesy of Gold Panda. Search Midnight Chats on iTunes for more episodes and to subscribe. For more information, visit loudandquiet.com.